Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. This is Dan Giffen. I'm super stoked for today's episode. It's a nice long one. There's a ton of goodies in this episode with Steve Primo. He is the founder of Savant Playback, which is an amazing small team that helps build hardware and software solutions for touring artists all over the world. He's an absolute brilliant dude, and I'm super grateful for having him on the podcast. I've been wanting to have him on here for a while. He's worked with some incredible artists like Bishop Briggs, Pharrell Williams, My Morning Jacket, Meek Mill, The Temptations, Strokes, Shinedown. We could probably go on for hours about all of his credits, but he shares a ton of really cool things. We talk about 3D projection mapping, live streaming, hardware solutions for live tours, lighting and visual programming. There's a lot of really good nerdy stuff in this episode that I think you guys will enjoy. He's pretty next level, so I selfishly wanted to have him on the podcast just so I could ask him a bunch of technical questions. But before we get into that episode today with Steve, I wanted to give a quick reminder to you guys that in light of all the corona craziness, I am giving 50% off for the first month for anybody that wants to step up their game producing in Ableton Live. So whether you're new or you have some experience, if you want help taking your music to the next level from studio to stage, go to liveproducersonline.com, use the discount code podcast, and you'll save 50% on your first month. If you join the pro membership, you can send your projects to me. I'll help you step by step, and we'll set up coaching sessions monthly to help you reach your goals, whatever that looks like. Check that out, liveproducersonline.com. Use a discount code podcast. Save some money in your piggy bank. And also, one more quick thing. If you do not own Ableton Live 10 Suite, our good, generous friends at Ableton in Germany are doing a 90-day free trial. So they extended it from 30 to 90 days, and you can go download that. Just go to ableton.com and download the free trial. Awesome time for collaboration. And if you're ready to pull the trigger and purchase Ableton Live, now is the most affordable time to do it. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton, and I can get it for you the cheapest that you will most likely ever find it. Also, I'm going to be live streaming on YouTube at 3 p.m. every Friday. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel of Live Producers Online, check that out. Link in the show notes with more details. Thanks for listening, guys. Much love to all of you. Hope you're staying healthy and safe and washing your hands. And here's today's episode with Steve Primo. Yeah, no, we were just talking about like the live streaming thing. Like, what were you saying?
The live streaming thing, I think, is it's a great thing right now. The band Code Orange that I work with, they have a playback system that we built for them, and they actually released their album. They're supposed to do their album release show, and they didn't get to do it because the shows got canceled. So they ended up doing a Twitch live stream. But they released a live stream with multicam, and it was like 13,000 people that viewed it. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. There's a lot of I mean, with AR and VR stuff, the way that it's going too, you can do some like really, really creative stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, we're looking into that a little bit. I was looking into it a lot more before. Like Nashville's on a lockdown right now of like you can't even go anywhere. So
yeah,
it's kind of like the live streaming thing's cool. I know that there's a couple of guys that I know that do like AI-based software stuff where they can take, like, if you really wanted to, you could have like one person in one state, one person in another, and you could combine everything from people's houses. But you're starting like to where you'd have like, you know, a band playing, but guitars in, you know, Minneapolis,
right.
drummers in California.
Yeah, there was a site that like kind of sort of worked, but like it was really buggy when I played with it, called Jam Kazam.
Oh, really?
Trying to do that.
Yeah,
that was like their whole business model years ago, and it just never really took off.
Right. Yeah, they I mean, the latency and stuff on everything like that, and the network connections and everything have to be so solid. Like, it's got to be a difficult thing to pull off. So yeah, we were looking at live streaming options, and it's really not a very difficult thing to get on like Twitch or something.
No.
And to do like a multicam setup, you can do just like a standard capture card with a video switcher.
Like
Um,
OBS or something.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was looking at we're doing some stuff with Black Magic Designs, and they're actually sending me one of their. They've got a really cool little new ATEM switcher that is.
Yeah, they do A10 Mini.
Yeah,
Dude, I was gonna buy that last week, but they're out of stock.
yeah, so I hit up their PR guy, and he's sending me one of those, and he's sending me one of the Studio Pro HDs, which is like
That's awesome.
the 1920 by 1080, which I've used that a lot before. We did some playback systems a while back that had live camera inputs, and we actually automated the cameras using OSC and MIDI. But yeah, I wanted one of the little ATEM minis just to look at, because I think
Yeah.
for people especially that might have like GoPros and stuff like that, you could do HDMI into it and have
Yep.
like a little multicam setup. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna do just probably something from the house and do like a video of kind of like, hey, this is kind of how you can set this up.
Right
Um,
on.
and we
Yeah,
were going to, we were going to start doing it with bands, but with everybody being quarantined, it's like you
yeah.
can't really offer a service when you can't leave your house.
Right, that's true. Yeah, and if the band's getting together, they might as well just quarantine together. It's not a bad idea.
I mean, yeah, right. It's true though.
It is.
There very well might open up a lot of exploration as well into just this kind of streaming services and just other ways for people to connect in the entertainment industry as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like Disguise media servers, and like the real time stuff with like Unreal Engine and Notch and stuff like that. They've been working on like, the virtual sets and stuff like that, where it's like a floor and then a wall left and right. But that kind of stuff with like Stipe cameras and stuff. I mean, you can do insane like augmented reality and virtual sets and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think that the future of some entertainment is not possibly, bands even playing to things like that, and then
Mhm.
streaming live events in some sort of an augmented, atmosphere like that. Even with a live crowd, and maybe in a smaller, studio setting, I think that's something that definitely would be able to bring people, especially acts that maybe can't, when you're in something like this, even if a country was quarantined by itself, potentially, you could still stream to
Other parts of the world.
another country
Yeah.
or something like that. If the United States wasn't quarantined, you could still offer that to,
Mhm.
Italy
Yeah.
or something like that.
And
So
there's more sites starting to pop out now that I feel like didn't have a lot of eyes on them before. Like Stage It is
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Like all
absolutely.
these payment gateway performance
Yeah,
streaming platforms. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I've been talking to a couple of my favorite local venues here in Indianapolis where I live, and they're all trying to figure that out right now. It's like,
Yeah,
how do we still do an awesome live performance online? But the
yeah,
whole VR thing, I mean, that's pretty
yeah.
wild. That's something I was talking about at Loop last year with somebody about like being the future of shows and stuff. And
Oh yeah.
now, and now it's like that's kind of being forced to push forward.
Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely. Well,
super,
there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it too. Especially with like real time rendering engines, the stuff like they do with like the flames coming in at like the Super Bowl show and stuff like
yeah,
that. Where like if you're watching it through like a Stipe camera or a VR camera or something like that, it's really, especially with the way that graphics cards are now, it's getting like some of the stuff that you can do. The augmented reality stuff is just like holy crap.
pretty wild
Yeah, so I definitely see some really cool stuff in the future for concerts and stuff,
for sure.
and live streaming services for sure.
You could
And
just get a Resloom feed in there somewhere, just make people trip out.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
overlay
absolutely.
it or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The I use Notch quite a bit. I haven't gotten into Unreal Engine, but Notch is a really cool platform that allows you to do real-time rendering. Same kind of. It's not a gaming engine like Unreal, but
Okay.
it's
I'm not
still.
familiar with it. I'll check that out.
Yeah, so they use it on it's called or the website is notch.one, so ONE. But it's a really cool program. They use it a lot in like live IMAG effects and stuff like that. But it's a 3D, a real-time 3D workspace. So you can do like particle simulations, fluid, like all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
That's
But
awesome. I'm gonna check that out when we hang up.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool program. They use it
Right.
on a lot of the larger tours and stuff, like where you see like DJ Snake, and he's got like these insane visuals where it's like him and his body outlined and like
Okay.
particles and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can do like a Connect camera with it, so you can like interact with screens, and you can move your hand from left to right, and it makes like particles move and clouds and stuff like that. So
Dope. That's
it's
awesome.
yeah, it's a really cool program. Similar kind of thing as Touch Designer, Unreal Engine, or Unity, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Have you heard about or seen much about Lightform?
Yeah, yeah, I've talked to those
So
guys
cool.
quite a bit actually. I've seen Lightform, and I've actually talked to them a little bit. I talked to them when they first started. Like I think it was a Kickstarter thing before they went fully public. I
Yeah.
can't remember,
Yeah, about
but
2 years
yeah,
ago. Been
yeah.
following them.
I talked to them probably about a year ago about some of their stuff, and I still think it's a really cool concept. I think
Yeah.
they're definitely for like large format stuff, like buildings and stuff like that. It's not really like you can't really go out and like do projection mapping on like a whole car or like a building or something like that. But retail displays and stuff like that, I think it's amazing. The price point's also really really good as well.
It is. Well,
Um,
they have two different things. They have their LF2, which is like an actual projector
right.
for like 3D mapping,
Yeah.
and then they have their LFC kit, which you could use with any projector.
Yeah.
That's what I bought actually last week.
Yeah, nice.
So
Did you get it yet, or is it still? Is it? Yeah,
still
it's
in the
like a
mail.
pre-order thing. Yeah.
Well, no, it's actually out of pre-order now. They're shipping,
Oh,
but
nice.
I'm just imagining that, with everything going on, the shipping's kind of slow.
Of course. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I like their product a lot. They're really cool. I've been wanting to talk to them a little bit and see how big, like how large you can actually go with it. Because I know they've got the one that it's this computer or sorry, camera based um, point cloud creation, but
Right.
I'm interested to see like how large, because I saw some of the videos that were doing like some like large like boulders and some things like that
Hmm. Yeah.
that were pretty big size. But I'd be interested to see how large you can actually like scale a system like that.
Well, we're about to find out. My buddy owns a large production company, and we rented like a 15,000 lumen projector, and so
Yeah,
we're gonna plug it in and see what happens.
yeah, that would
See what
be
we can
cool,
do with
man.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be really cool. The company Disguise that is a media server company. They have something really similar called OmniCal or QuickCal, and
Okay.
it's the kind of stuff like you see it like it's the Sydney Opera House when they do like when they projection map it, and like the Olympics and stuff like that. All of
Yeah.
those like really massive things where you see like the whole side of a building and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah, dude. I'm
Mo-
into it.
yeah, most of those are disguise systems, but they use a
Right on.
camera to actually create the scan, which is really cool.
Hmm.
A little bit faster than sitting there with a mouse and clicking 5,000 vertices and like
Right.
bending everything around.
Which is
So
what I'm about to do. Yeah, for a while.
yeah, I'm gonna do the same. I don't have it in here. I'm working on a projection mapping project, and I bought a 1/12 RC car because it's a car we're projection mapping onto a vehicle. So I bought like an RC car, and I spray painted it white so that I
That's
can
awesome.
try to work on some of the angles and stuff like that.
That's
But some of
cool.
that stuff it's difficult, man, to get like this, especially on a vehicle where you have like soft edges. If you're doing like stuff where it's like, oh, I've got like, some triangles and some squares and stuff. But when you start
Yeah.
talking about rounded surfaces and like how to break things up,
It's
um,
tricky.
it gets a little bit different, especially with multiple projectors and stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, the Lightform thing will be cool, man. That'll be fun. Some of
I'm
that
looking
stuff
forward to that.
looks really cool. I think it supports. I think originally I don't think it supported you being able to bring your own content in, and I think the new one does. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
you can import your own video.
yeah, that's wicked.
But yeah, man. Anyway, this podcast is about you. I want to talk more about like your journey and what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Savant Playback is your company. When did you start that? How did it get started?
It started probably 8 years ago. I started on a country tour, and I had been a Ableton programmer for uh, probably well since 2003. I think I started messing with Ableton.
Version was that? That'd have been like
Dude, I honestly don't even know. So I went.
3 or
I
4 or
I
something?
moved. I moved to Nashville in 2003 to go to school, and I graduated in 2005. I started using Ableton sometime around then, but I can't really remember. I started using Reason when it was like Reason probably two or some like crazy like that.
The
I'm
legacy
30,
version.
I'm 37 and I was 16 when I started using Reason, so it's 21 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
God knows what dude, the computer the computer was like
Like
way
a powered PC back in
it
the
was throwback, dude. I remember
Nice.
trying to program my first drum and bass beat, and I was like all into Aphex Twin and stuff, but using like redrum and stuff, and making this like crazy glitched out stuff. I mean, we were still spinning vinyl, so it's been like
Wow.
like I grew up as like an EDM kid, and like it wasn't exactly EDM, you
Before
know.
EDM was a thing,
It
so
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't EDM in '97 and '98 whenever we were going to raves and stuff like
yeah,
that. Um, I
yeah.
think my first rave would have been '96 or '97. I still have flyers from some of those, but I was really heavy into drum and bass and like Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, and all kinds of stuff like that.
Dope.
Um, so I kind of grew up on that. So MIDI programming and stuff was kind of something that I had been into for ages. Um, and I had been an Ableton guy for years, and I went out as a stage manager on Chase Rice tour actually. I think it was probably maybe 7 years ago, maybe eight, something like that. Went out as a stage manager, and they had an Ableton system, and I was like, "What are you guys using Ableton Live for?" I was like, "You're like country band." I didn't even know that playback was like a thing at all. And then after that, it was just kind of like I started working on their project, and then I started like working on more, and ended up building them a system. After that, the first system that Savant Playback actually sold would have been December of 2017, I think it was.
Yeah.
December 17th of 2017, I think, was the first one that, as an actual company.
Right. I've
Um,
been seeing all the Instagram posts with your rigs that you're offering and selling now, and I'm
yeah.
like constantly having to like practice self-control because I want to buy all of them. It's like I don't
Yeah,
even need all of them. I just
yeah.
want them. I'm just
Some
like
of
this
the
is sexy. I need this.
one of the most rewarding things for me, and it's funny because I get so like jealous sometimes, like the media servers that we've been building and stuff. Like one of the funniest things is like when we get done with something, and I want it so bad because it's so cool, but then it's like it's not mine, and I'm like
Right.
I get to watch it go, and I'm like watching it leave, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's like seeing your kid
cool.
go off to kindergarten for the first time, he's like
Yeah,
spreading his wings and flying now.
yeah, it's so crazy. But that
Yeah.
to me is um, a sign that we've done something right. Is whenever it's like, man, like that's seeing a system that I'm jealous of. That's maybe like kind of my own personal like satisfaction of being like, yeah, that was done right. Like I would rock
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's constantly trying to make new things to solve issues and stuff. We've really focusing this year on a lot of product development. We've got a lot of custom power things and products that we're actually trying to do, to bringing some of the stuff that is more so custom to a larger market, and
Right.
being able to kind of standardize that stuff is something I'm really working on, because there's every single playback person has the same issues. It's a very small.
What are some of those issues? If we could just kind of talk about that for a second, because I
uh
mean, you've been doing the live playback thing for a long time, obviously, and
yeah.
I've just in the last 2 years through Laura Escudé, which
Oh yeah.
she, I took her master track class
Oh cool.
a while ago, and
Yeah.
like learned a lot about the hardware side of things because I've
Yeah.
always been a software nerd. So
Yeah.
I after that class, I heard about you through one of the people I was in the class with, and like yeah, check out Savant Playback. He's killing it with the hardware rigs and
Yeah.
playback rigs. That's how I found out about you. Anyway, but yeah, like common issues for playback engineers. Like this is a full-time job that's really become a bigger reality, I think, for a lot of people in the last several years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't step onto a large format stage or even like a mid-level touring, stage and them not have some form of playback, whether it's just strictly time code for lighting, or if, maybe they have click tracks, maybe they have count ins, pop acts are running, some of them are running 32 tracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely grown. I think one of my things that I'm focusing on is I don't feel that playback, and I've been doing it like 6, 8 years. There's people that have been doing it like way, way longer than I have for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a time, even with everything going the way that it is with streaming and stuff like that, I think that it's a time where playback is becoming like its own entity and an industry of itself, as opposed to, it's always kind of been either lumped in with backline or it's kind of been lumped in with like audio. And when you're on tour, it's kind of that way. But it's getting to the point where the systems are controlling more, they're doing more. Kind of our goal is to be able to make it to where people are like, this is its own industry. It's not just like, oh, it's a couple computers you throw in a backpack and stuff. Like when it gets to the point that your show is reliant on it, it needs to be thought of as something that's just as important as an audio console, or even your tour bus. Like
Sure.
if the tour bus doesn't work, you don't have a show. If your playback rig doesn't work, you probably might have a show, but you're not going to have synchronized lights like your lighting guy,
There's a lot
lighting,
of things
pyro,
going on.
video. It's literally one of the most important elements of the show. So if it's not treated that way,
Yeah.
and I say it a lot, it's like it's not a problem until it is. So
Yeah.
making sure that people take this stuff as seriously as they should too, because a
Right.
lot of people out there are like rocking like MacBook Airs and they're like, yeah, it's fine. I got like, my grocery list with my notes and stuff like that on there, and like their friends are getting like notifications and stuff while they're playing keyboards and stuff.
Oh man.
Um,
Yeah, the snow.
but yeah, so common thing I would say is probably just making sure that everybody that's you know involved with the systems know that how important they truly are and regard them as
Sure.
dedicated show machines. One of the things that I take, or the reason that I dove so deeply into the hardware world, is because even if you can program a show and you've got like the best ears and you're insane at software, none of that really matters if your hardware doesn't work, because you can't just hold a computer up in the air and be like, cool, here we go.
Right.
Like
Great.
you have to have like proper power, you have to have like a lot of different things that
Yeah.
bring that. The computer's obviously the driving brain,
Yeah.
but all of the elements that are in that in a system are equally important to each other because they all rely on each other. But common things I would say, obviously, size of systems, size and weight is one of the biggest things. As touring gets smaller, not touring getting smaller, but the days of like 50 trucks with like analog consoles and stuff like that, like people aren't doing that anymore. I mean, yeah, there's like 20, 30 truck tours and stuff like that, but people are rocking small format consoles, digital consoles and stuff like that, where the footprint is just entirely different, which is the same thing with playback. Even with Maddie and Dante systems, them being very small and compact, being able to take higher track counts out at different sample rates and stuff like that. So size and weight, I think, are the most common problems that playback people face.
Sure.
You obviously don't want to check your rig unless you've got two. So like if you go to, from a carry-on system that you can fit, 2 rack spaces, You're limited to what you can fit in that. You also have a depth thing, so it's like you can't use but a handful of specific interfaces and a 10-inch deep rack. So you're working with 20 inches wide by 10 inches deep by 3.75 inches tall. So that's
Yep.
like here's your area. This is what you've got.
This is your baby. You
Yeah.
carried it
So
with your life. And when you're traveling, you got to make sure it's secure going on the plane. And
yeah, well, that even like so, yeah, size and weight is a big thing. In the U.S., the weight for overhead stuff isn't quite as significant. I would say they're not as strict. Something that a lot of people maybe don't take into consideration is like weight limits, also, and size whenever you get overseas as well. Um, I was on a tour where I had 6 MacBook Pros, a Razer Blade 17-inch. Actually, I had 7 15-inch MacBook Pros, an iPad Pro, 2 iPad Minis, and a Razer Blade Pro 17, which 3 of those devices were personal and the rest were for the tour. But
and
they
you
were
need redundancy, so you needed 2 laptops for each rig.
so there was four laptops for the playback system, an iPad for the playback system, 2 laptops for my personal backups, a video laptop, and then a personal iPad for whenever I was, just whatever. But it's a 1510 that was 67 pounds because it had, so many computers in it. So
Yeah.
weight limit, it's also got, I mean, at $4,000 a pop for the laptops, you're talking like with the iPads and stuff, like $35,000 worth of computers. But like when I went overseas, I'm like, this is the correct size for carry-on, but they only allow you what it's like. I think it's 32 pounds, maybe 35 pounds or something like that. So there was a point where I literally had to hand like 8 other people, like computers and stuff. I was like, hey, when we get to Russia, everybody gets a laptop.
Hey, don't break it or lose it or
Yeah,
drop
because
it.
it was very like the
Yeah.
weight limits and the size over there. Same thing, even with a 2U playback system. In the States, if you get on a plane to go from Atlanta to North Carolina or something, and they put you on a regional plane, there's not going to be room for a carry-on case. So even then, they may make you gate check stuff, but
Right.
um,
So speaking of equipment, like I've been following your Instagram and I know some of the gear that you use, but a lot of the listeners have no idea. So maybe we can nerd out a little bit on
yeah,
like what those plugins and things look like. I know
yeah,
you're a big fan of the iConnect audio interfaces
yeah,
because you can pair them together for redundancy.
yeah.
And people don't know what redundancy means, just means you have 2 of the same thing going on. So 2 laptops just mirroring each other, just doing the same thing. Yeah, what other like audio interfaces do you stand behind or love to use?
So I've worked with iConnectivity for a long time. They actually kind of brought me on. So when I was doing my first playback system with Chase Rice, I needed to be able to do a MIDI, and I needed to be able to have the playback system off to the side of the stage, and I needed to have the drummer be able to be 100 feet away. So they were one of the first companies I really started working with in depth because they have network MIDI, still kind of the leader of network MIDI. And I think that first rig that I did is probably still the first network I set up is still out on that tour.
Mhm.
And we're about to like redo it, but it's been ages, and it was like prototype software and stuff that was like looked like, it wasn't like hackerish, but it was it was like prototype software, like beta stuff.
Right.
But it saved the network to where instead of having to go into like audio MIDI setup or your network preferences and like create a network every time, it saves the network to both of the interfaces, which is really nice.
Nice.
Um, we also use RME for a lot of
Yeah.
stuff for Maddie and Dante systems. We like to use RME. The direct out stuff is really nice. Their switchers, the Xbox MD is really nice. And then the Xbox BLDS is really nice. They
Okay.
also have like a much larger format unit that's called like the Prodigy series. So they've got an MC and an MP. Um, really high end converters and stuff like that. But those boxes are like a 2U, 2 rack space. I can't remember the depth off the top of my head. I think they're somewhere around 11 inches, but they actually have modules in the rear, so you can do Wave Sound Grid Network, you can do Dante, you can do Maddie, you can actually do. So they've got mic and line input cards and output cards, so you can it's a modular configuration. So you buy like a chassis, and the chassis is X amount of dollars, and then as a touring playback guy, you can have a handful of cards and whatever the tour calls for. If they want redundant Dante, or they want Maddie, or you may have mic inputs that you need for vocal processing or something. It's all encased in one unit. So they also use those for like front of house processing and stuff like that.
What's that called again? RME?
That's direct out. So the company is just like it sounds, just the word direct and then direct out. Yeah. They're really cool. So they're kind of like, if you go into the digital playback world, that's kind of where you start to see those. So the direct out, the Xbox MD is a Maddie and a Dante switching device.
This is good to know.
And then the BLDS or the Xbox, BLDS is it's a Maddie switching interface. So you can take a pair of like the RME Maddie face which are little tiny guys. You can plug them into a Maddie switcher.
Nice.
And then have like a carry-on system, which would allow you to do 32, 64 inputs, something like that.
Yeah.
Depending on what your sample rate and stuff like that is. The thing with digital systems is you have to do a lot more with clocking. Typically, like if you have Maddie, you typically have to use like a Black Lion micro clock or something like that. But it is really slick, because if you've just got a single, coax cable or BNC cable going to, your SD7 or whatever console you've got, it's a really clean little setup.
Yeah. And I could talk about this kind of stuff all day. Like, I'm taking notes right now. So much stuff I'm going to end up buying that at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, their stuff is really cool. I know that the direct out stuff is like, it's out on Kiss and a bunch of people like that. They've got like a really high end D to A converter called the Andiamo. But their stuff is really geared towards broadcast. They do a lot of like really high end broadcast stuff.
Cool.
Really beautiful gear though. It's a German company.
Just like Ableton.
Yeah. And they
a lot of good software in that country.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of goodies over there. Absolutely.
For sure, man. Yeah, those German engineers know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you also do a lot with like Resloom and the lighting side, not just audio and maybe.
I've been kind of a visual nerd for a long time, and it actually kind of started from before I had the Savant Playback company. I originally started as a musician, would do like our visuals for myself whenever I produced and stuff like that. That's kind of how I started getting into Resolume.
Are you still producing today?
No, I'll program other people's shows, but it was one of those things a long time ago where I decided it was like, well, I can either produce, because I had a sound design company before I went to full hardware, and I started to do I was doing software-based stuff. Like Ableton programming. I was doing Ableton templates for like they've got like a Abletunes. I don't know if you've ever heard of that company, but they have like song templates.
I've contacted them a few times about.
Yeah, so I used to work with them, and I did sound design, and then I would do I did all kinds of like software stuff like that.
Cool. Nice.
But as far as producing now, no, like I'll do like sound design for like little segues for shows and stuff like that. And I guess technically there's some level of production. Like I have a show I just programmed, and they would send me like 60 stems. So I guess it would be more like musical directing or working with the band. But
Yeah.
as far as like sitting down and programming drum and bass and stuff like that,
Right.
I just my nerd time now is like video stuff.
Hmm. I mean, as a playback engineer, would you say that anybody who's doing playback should also have some good solid level of production behind them, like as
Oh,
far as a
absolutely.
producer?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's the if you want to get more work, the more solid your production chops are, the more work you'll be able to get, without a doubt.
Right.
Um, the that also goes without saying that you can also get thrown into the fire with like very large amount of workload on tour.
They're
So
like, hey, just we're gonna fix the chorus here. We're gonna duplicate the verses on 4 songs.
some
We're
people,
gonna
some people do. There's a couple of different types of playback people. There's some that are very heavy into sound design and like really enjoy like reworking things constantly on the road.
yeah.
There's the start stop guys that have a foot switch, and they stand there, and it's just like a click and a
Hitting
couple
that
things.
space bar. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people still, it kind of goes back to like what I was talking about as well, with people taking playback seriously. Is one of the things that really drove me to start taking it seriously and start the company was that in Nashville, every single drummer that I saw, they'd get a gig and they'd get handed two 10-year-old MacBooks, and then they'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
so here, you're a playback engineer now. And they're like, well, I've I've used Logic before. And
Yeah.
they're like, okay, well, we're using Ableton.
You can
uh,
figure that out in like a day. It's fine. Just do
yeah,
it.
it's like, don't worry about it. It's not like it's driving like the entire show. And that's kind of what it goes back to. Like I said, like if you're willing to go on tour without like a monitor engineer or a front of house guy or a playback engineer,
Yeah.
then you can totally automate things, and that's great. But at some point, you also have to have somebody that knows how that stuff works, or
Yeah.
have have a really good tour manager or production manager that is also a tech guy, that can
Mhm.
do that stuff. Because what happens with most people is, if you don't have a solid production background, and say Joe is a drum tech and he knows just enough to get himself into trouble with Digital Performer or Ableton, you end up with band-aids on top of band-aids on top of
Yeah.
band-aids, and then your show file ends up being nasty. And then even when you do have somebody that knows what they're doing
Mhm.
come in, they're like so confused. They're like, oh my gosh, you have like you have this stuff routed like all over the place, and like
Man,
there's
you're
duplicates.
speaking my life right now. Like 5 years ago, my first playback gig I ever had. I'm having a
Yeah.
flashback as you're saying everything right
Oh
now.
yeah. Oh dude, I've been there like
PTSD is coming.
yeah, I've been there a million times, and like that's one of the things. Like I said, I'm stressing to people, our clients and everybody, like, you know, the if your entire show is dependent on playback, which obviously a lot of the people that come to us, if there's no playback, there's no show. Some
Mhm.
people, of course, don't use it as heavily, and they can do a show. But if your entire show is dependent on it, and it's like, hey, if this doesn't work, or this person can't get this up and running, like, we're going to have serious issues, and
Sure.
potentially not even have an event that night.
Right.
It has to be taken it has to be taken seriously. The gear, the computers,
Mhm.
software updates,
Right.
like everything. Like, you have to treat that just like you would anything. And especially, like I said, if your whole show depends on it, it's like,
Don't mess it up.
yeah, you gotta treat it right, man.
Yep.
Don't use a MacBook Air and just expect, like, your Dropbox notifications to not throw an error in the middle of the middle
Yeah.
of the show, and be like, you know what, it's fine, dude.
Or
We got a bus with a shower,
yeah.
and that's dope. But this guy's
Right.
he's gonna use his iPad and his MacBook Air, for the playback system. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
and then
all
he's
good.
got his iMessages popping up in the middle of the
Yeah,
show. Just like,
yeah,
"Ding."
yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah, well, we were talking about lighting a little bit, and then I kind of ended up like throwing you into a different rabbit trail of thought. But
oh
like
yeah.
the lighting stuff, I mean, you were starting to talk about some of the newer things that you were doing with that.
Yes, this year I plan to focus a lot on video integration, and we've built some lighting stuff too. Lighting stuff is we've used the DMX's stuff quite a bit, and
Mhm.
um, it's really simple for people to get into like a pretty decent like small club size like lighting rig, be able to program it and be able to take it out and have kind of like an all-in-one kind of guy. Like I'll see a common thing will be like a smaller band that'll have like a production or tour manager that will do playback but also has a little bit of programming experience and will do set up some a little lighting rig for them, and they'll have some LED bars down front, and then Resolume integration and stuff like that.
Mhm.
My kind of path for Savant Playback is to continue down the like what I consider modular touring packages, which is where you have a Pelican of whatever size that's your playback, a Pelican that has your video system, a Pelican that has your lighting. All of these systems are thought out to where power runs from device to device. All of them talk to each other. You can control them from multiple positions, and then they can also be scalable to where if you do have a lighting guy that has a Grand MA3 or something like that, you can give him control of the DMX's plugin if you're on a small format tour, or scaling up even to where I mean, really, if you go from DMX's, if you go from that level, the next level is just going to time code and running a time coded out show, which you can
Mhm.
still do in a small format. You can use like Grand MA on PC, and you can run it from side stage and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be like a full size like lighting console out
Sure.
front or something. There's a lot of you know
Workarounds and things.
yeah. So then that's kind of the path that we've chosen, is that market of people that want to have control over everything, and it's gone from having to have a 15-person crew to being able to have a competent backline crew, a and production manager, and then maybe one person that can handle playback but is also skilled and multilingual in software to where they know Resolume, they know Ableton, they know how to make both of those speak. Lighting can be controlled from DMXs, and then video can be controlled, via MIDI, OSC, time code, or something like that.
Mhm. Is
Um,
that how you're running Resolume to talk with Ableton? Are you using OSC or are you using MIDI or both?
so the media servers that we've got right now, if we have like standalone playback system, standalone media server, 4 computer system, 2 for playback, 2 for video. What we're doing right now is we're using timecode to trigger clips and Resolume, and then we're using RTP MIDI to fire off columns.
Mhm.
So
So
if
for
you
people listening who have absolutely no idea, like what
it sounded
time
like I
code.
just recited the alphabet backwards.
Yeah, I kind of did. I kind of did. There's a lot of people on
Yeah.
this podcast that's like, I don't really know what time code is. I don't know what Resolume is. So maybe you could explain that really, really fast.
Yeah, Resolume is a software. It's a media server software, more geared towards VJs. It's clip based, similar to Ableton,
Mhm.
and kind of like the way that it's laid out and everything.
Yeah.
Stacking order is very important. If you have a column, which would look similar to a track on Ableton. So a column, if you launch it, it would launch every clip from top to bottom, and that would be multiple layers. So that your layers of a cake basically, and then column would be like left to right slices of that cake if it were a square cake, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
Resolume's one of my favorite type of cakes, to be honest.
yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's video DJing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So Resolume is really cool. It's easy to get into. They have a couple of different options. They have Avenue, which is kind of like your introduction to it. It doesn't support time code, and it doesn't support
Right.
DMX, I believe. But if you're VJing and you're going out on tour with a band, and the band has if the band is a jam band, or even if they've got playback or something like that, you can easily sync up a Resolume computer, even if you don't have like some crazy, like we've been doing these, redundant 4K, like rack mount servers and stuff. You can easily take, even like one of the iConnectivity interfaces. It's one of the reasons we use those, is that they connect to dual computers. So you can run time code from your playback system to like one of the iConnect Audio 2 Plus or 4 Plus, and you can run time code to both of your computers, so that then you can have a redundant video system. You can also just run a single USB interface and run time code. So you could run visuals from front of house using Resolume, or you could run visuals, side stage with even something as small as like a MIDI fighter or something like that. I know a lot of people use like the native instruments, like the F1, I think, is the little controller. It's a small, maybe 6-inch wide, but I think it's got 8 pads and then 4 faders and 4 knobs.
Yeah.
It's like a tractor controller, I think.
I like that thing for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of people use that because you can MIDI map it directly just by plugging it into your laptop. You can MIDI map it and go into Resolume. I always use the Akai stuff. And then a lot of the things that we've been doing recently for Resolume and playback, so that they're kind of like all at the same spot as using Lemur and using an iPad, just because you can set it up to where you have multiple pages. So you can have songs on one page, and you can have each button have a song title, so that whenever you hit it, it just sends you to a locator point. But that MIDI note as well will select a column in Resolume. So not only does it select your song, but it selects your column of video content in Resolume. And then when you hit play, it sends time code, which then triggers whatever clips you have in that column.
Right.
But the small format media server with Resolume, that's one of the only things that's kind of like that you have to kind of work out, is if you're running time code, you can't select a column with time code. So you have to have either somebody standing over there that's manually doing it, which is really cool, honestly, because you can do like what's called like freewheeling, where if, say, you hit play on the iPad, it's playing, and it has selected column 12 for song 12. You can actually do what's called freewheeling, and the VJ or the video operator, side stage or front of house or wherever, they can actually jump over and jump out of that column. They can do a bunch of stuff on the pad, do effects, mess with like live camera feeds and stuff. And then whenever they select that column again, that column is still running and catches back with time code. So you can actually jump in and out of a time coded show.
Nice.
Simply by just selecting what column you're on.
Yeah.
That allows you to be able to, like a lot of the guys that we're working with, they'll have like some songs that are very scripted and like very choreographed, and like this is like we hit play, we go, the song plays. This has got a very precise music video. But then some of the other stuff, it's like, okay, well, we're playing along, and when we get to this section, we want to vamp. So like in our Ableton set, we've got a thing where you can toggle between I've just got it key mapped to the letter K, but it toggles between a loop and then a count in. So it just repeats. It's a repeat locator marker. But at every like part, any section where somebody would potentially want to repeat that section, I've just got a MIDI note, and it's mapped to where you can just press a button, it'll enable it to whatever the global quantize is, and then they can loop. So even if that's synced
Nice.
to time code. Like, so I've got it on like bridges, verses, choruses, things like that. For when, if you're out with, some major pop artist and they have like, wardrobe malfunction or,
Just to entertain people with some visuals and stuff.
yeah, you never know when something like that is going to be needed. So
Definitely.
that's another really important thing, is to make sure everything's on grid and that you don't have like just some like, in that scenario you would be using arrangement view. You wouldn't be, I mean, I guess you could still use session view with Ableton.
Shoot a new clip or something.
Yeah, and there's a trillion different ways to do stuff like that, especially when you do clip and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, there's always like 12 ways to do the same thing, right?
oh yeah, we try to keep it. We're luckily the template that I developed for us and all of our systems. It always goes out with all of our rigs, so everything that we have is on the same exact template. Then, of course, they're modified slightly to, for each artist. But in an ideal world, we have full control of the setup, and that way, whenever the stuff arrives, whenever the system arrives, the session's set up. We also do a lot of like screen share stuff where if we sell a system to someone and they want like a visual tour of the session, how everything is mapped and everything like that, we'll do it. We'll do team viewer. Something else I do a lot of that's like that I've saved like tutorials on, as I will do like if somebody's in Wisconsin and they're like, hey, I need to know how to do this really quick, I'll do a screen capture. I'll walk them through that specific thing. I'll save that video to Dropbox, and then I'm also creating a content library of common issues that people have, and that way I can be like, okay, well, this is how you create a clip, or this is how you create a new click track using our MIDI. Like we have like our session template. I created 28 different click samples, and I actually synthesized them using Serum. And I went in and I made them in each key, and then I made the accents in a perfect fifth of that.
That's brilliant.
So there's 28 different click samples that you can
do the key of the track,
so that you can make the click either be, and it can be something that's not in the same key, so that it specifically is non-harmonically, and so that it doesn't blend in. But I went in and I was like, all right, I don't want like, because all of the like wood block and all these samples that I found just suck.
It's annoying after a while.
They just all like, they were like dull, and they just weren't good. So I went in and I used Serum for it. I mastered all of them, and we use a click. We use a drum rack for that.
Yep.
So the cool thing about it is if you have a click track here. We use a drum rack for clicks. We use a drum rack for slates, and then song titles. And that way, all you have to do is on your timeline, wherever you're going to have it, you just draw in 1, 2, 3, 4. And then anytime that you need a count in, you highlight that, hit Apple E, Apple C to cut, copy, and then any place that you drag that, because it's MIDI, it's automatically perfectly on tempo.
Right.
So click tracks, you can literally, like, I've seen people sit there on Digital Performer and they take like a piece of audio and they like put their grid to like quarter note, and then they place one, and then they place another one, and then they zoom in to make sure it's right. And like,
that sounds awful.
And like, I hit Apple B and I just draw like 32 bars, and then I'm like Apple C, Apple B, Apple C, Apple B.
Yeah, shortcuts for the win, right? Honestly.
Yeah. We using MIDI stuff like that.
I do the same thing for my live sets.
Yeah, it works really, really well. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff.
I love the drum rack. Yeah. I even use the drum rack to program notes to trigger Resolume for certain clips.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I'll just draw them out and have it pre-programmed with like a music video type of format of stuff.
Let's
Then I
go.
use there's a Max for Live device called OSC Sender,
Yeah,
and we use that for parameter changes of effects.
yeah. That's
Um,
killer. Yeah, I messed with that a little bit before. When I did this, I did an iMag setup a long time ago, and it was one of these insane moments where I was trying to get. So we had the Blackmagic ATEM Studio Pro HD, which accepts OSC, and I was trying to get just trying to send, and I was using Oscillator and then OSC Sender to send the camera changes to the video switcher.
oh,
So
nice.
you can use yeah, so you can use MIDI notes that you can convert MIDI to OSC, which then sends OSC messages to a video switcher that can take network. And I was like, oh, this is freaking amazing. I clicked on something and I saw a MIDI note pop up in Ableton, and I was like, wait a second. So I had somehow in my crazy networking managed to find an Easter egg to where I turned the video switcher into a MIDI controller that would send OSC into Ableton. So it was like the craziest thing because
Awesome.
they've got a 4K version, which is 8 SDI 4K inputs, and then they've got an HD version, which is just 1920 by 1080, and it has 4 SDI inputs and 4 HDMI, but both of them can be put. Both of them can send and receive OSC messages. So there's a thing on GitHub, and it's an application called Oscillator,
Yeah.
but you can. And then there's that, and there's the missing link between all of them. It's called ATEM OSC, so it's ATEM and then OSC. So you have to have like 5 applications open to make it all work, but you can literally sit there, you can listen to the band, and you can program camera changes while using the video switcher, and you can record those into Ableton, and then you just reverse the send, and then it sends Ableton, or Ableton sends the OSC to the video switcher. But you can control crossfades between cameras.
That's awesome.
You can control fade to black, all kinds of stuff like that.
That could be really powerful if you're doing a live stream recording of a band show or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things we've been working with Blackmagic this year. We've been using a ton of their Ultra Studio 4Ks for all of our media servers. Those things are really snazzy. They've got like the little monitor in the front so that you can actually see what you're outputting. So, but they do 4K and ultra high def. So they do 4096 DCI video format. And they're just they're lightning fast.
Mhm.
One of the really, really cool things about them too is they provide 45 watts of laptop charging power. So like if you're running a smaller setup where you don't have 4 computers, you can actually use the Thunderbolt 3 that's sending video as your power supply for your MacBook Pro if you're on a USB-C one.
Oh, nice.
So like they not only do they charge your laptop, but they also will do 4K video at the same time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Super nice, man.
But yeah, the ATEM thing though, man, that was one of those things where it was like mind blowing, and it was like probably 2.5 years ago, I think, that we set that thing up. But
That's cool. That's really cool.
it's really neat that you can do. And like when I asked people around, like I was like, has anybody like done this before? And I asked around on some of the video Facebook groups and stuff like that, and they're like, well, yeah, you can time code ROS media server, or not media servers, but video switchers and stuff like that. The really, really cool thing that sets that apart is, so if say you've got clips and you're Tipper or Soundtribe or somebody like that, and you're doing more of not like a time coded out show, but like a clip based show. So you can have sections of songs in session view to where you hop around or anything, and you can change your tempo, and you can change anything that you want to, that you can control from Ableton. That will then control your video So instead of being like a time coded show where like, okay, well, this song's 119 beats per minute, the camera cuts are here, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
if you go from, 175 beats per minute, and then you're like, okay, well, now we're going to jump. I want to play this thing at halftime. Um, because it's OSC and it's MIDI, it'll dynamically follow you. So
Right.
your show can
Right.
evolve at whatever tempo
Yeah.
or whatever. So you're not
It's
you're
great
not
for DJ sets too. I'm
yeah,
just
so
slowly.
you're not locked in like with time code to where it's like, yeah, okay, so you can automate everything and it's hours, frames, minutes, seconds, or frames. Um,
That's super nice. It gives you a lot of flexibility.
yeah, with MIDI, it's really rad, but that you can actually like that was the biggest thing when I was working on that project is I was like, they didn't want to be locked into. They were like, okay, so what happens if we want to do this? And I was like, all right, well, let's just we'll make one single clip in Ableton. It'll be a pad that you hit, and it's your front of house camera, and it's this loop. So like for as they would scroll through songs and stuff, um, they would have a kit on the SPDSX, and whenever he would scroll through, that would trigger, a specific scene in Ableton, and then he would have a couple of different things where the drummer would be in charge of maneuvering through, the roadmap of kind of like what they were doing, but it was all done from an SPDSX. So in essence, the drummer and poor drummers because they just get thrown into all like and I get it too because it's like
True.
they are the backbone and stuff, but I feel so bad for so many drummers these
Just
days
give it
because
to the
like
drummer.
because you
It's
put things like that on them and it's like, all right, cool. So
funny because that is true.
it's like not only are you the drummer, but you now are the video director because when you hit these pads,
Yeah.
now it's gonna say, okay, well, we're going to the chorus, or we're going into this, or we're going into this vamp. And it's like, not only are you the drummer, but you're also, the playback guy, and you're also the video director because everything is following you.
Yeah. Don't mess it up.
So good luck. Here's your sticks. Have fun, buddy.
Right. For real. I'm a drummer, and I feel like that is the mentality of the band. Is like, well, we need somebody to do this. Just let him use his feet, or just let him use his hand. Just
Oh yeah, exactly. You can trigger video with your left foot. It'll be fine.
yeah, it'll be fine. Just figure it
Yeah.
out.
But I mean, it is still one of those things where in a perfect environment, if everything is set up right, a system like that, sending OSC and sending MIDI and stuff like that isn't something that's like, revolutionary to send like OSC messages to something that receives it. MIDI and OSC are, they're pretty rock solid
Yeah.
as long as you have everything configured properly. Hitting a pad to trigger things like that, even though when you talk about it on a podcast and you're like, well, the drummer's triggering video, and like you think of like all of the like just weird network cables and crap. But it's relatively simple as long as it's done, properly. And,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that's the key right there, is just keeping it simple.
oh, yeah.
You can overcomplicate anything if you really want to, especially
Oh,
in this
yeah.
world. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
simplifying it and making it as easy as possible for whoever's doing that playback or just
Oh,
the
yeah.
entire show in general.
I try to take as many things out of the equation as possible.
Hmm.
There's a quote. I'll probably screw it up since you're recording, but it's what
Perfect.
the essence of perfection is, or perfection is not whenever nothing is left to be added, but when nothing else can be taken away.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I've heard that. I've heard that before.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of become a company motto of my own. It's kind of like, yeah, you can do anything with, a 15 rack space and $200,000, but what can you do with, 2 rack spaces and $3,000? Like,
Right.
like it's like that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that giant rack. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then you can just charge them the extra like $190,000. No, I'm just kidding.
We all know what budgets are.
Right. No, I'm just kidding.
Especially this year.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah, man. How are you doing with your team right now in the midst of all the Corona craziness?
We actually have been doing okay. Like I said earlier, we were sold out through March already, before March even hit.
That's
Um,
great. That's
we're
good.
lucky enough that it takes us a while to do what we do. It typically takes us like delivery time on our systems is typically 14 business days. If we do like custom metal fabrication and stuff like that, which is pretty standard. We've got a lot of inventory of kind of like the things that are most likely to sell.
Yeah.
We keep a lot of that stuff, but then of course, people want their logos on things. They want it laser etched.
Yeah.
And instead of like, these two USB ports, they want SDI or something like that. So
Hmm.
the custom metal fabrication stuff is kind of one of the things that takes kind of the longest for us. But we've been doing okay. We're actually between all of the playback stuff that we had that was already booked and then the video projects that we've got, it's still been 18-hour work days, like every single freaking day.
Wow.
I
Wow.
won't lie, I'm honestly excited. Like we've got 8 systems right now that I'm looking at, and then 5 panel builds that are going out this week, and then I can go into like quarantine mode, which
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to, just sitting behind a computer and nerding out,
Yeah.
and just getting to do a bunch of notch work and stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
said earlier, we got this. Got a projection mapping thing that we're working on.
I
Been doing a lot of stuff with Connect, as well. I haven't got one of the Connect Azures yet, or is that? I think it's Connect. I don't even remember if it's
the
the.
new interface they're coming out with. Or-
So the Azure, and I want to say that it's Connect. I don't think it's Intel, but so they've got like the depth cameras, like the Xbox Connect 1 and 2, then the Azure AZURE, and then there's like the Intel RealSense. But the depth cameras have been just the messing around with those is a really really cool thing with Notch and like Touch Designer. You can do like you can set it up to where you can move like particles and stuff like that. So like I've got this one thing I'm going to work on where so the ceiling is actually an LED wall, and you can set it up to where the Connect camera, it has like a near and a far depth setting. So whenever you dial in, it just kind of looks like a black and white camera. But when you set it up to where it starts to pick apart the depth of things. So if you're closer to the camera than the background, obviously, then it only sees your outline. So that outline of your body creates a skeleton in Notch software to where if, say, I have a ceiling and the ceiling is an interactive fields system, say, it can look like clouds, but you can create an extractor basically that says, okay, this my left hand moves this 3D interface and this, so you can actually like wipe clouds away so that you can see a sky
That's amazing.
with your hands.
That's amazing.
Interactive particles and stuff like that is kind of like
What's that called? That camera?
that's just the Connect. That's the Xbox camera.
The Xbox camera. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Connect 2. The let me see. The Azure. I feel like the Azure is. I still think it's a Microsoft.
That's really cool.
I haven't bought one of them yet. I'm looking it up right now. Oh yeah. So Azure Connect, AZURE. So they're brand new. Just got released. Maybe they were just sold out of the things. I just started messing around with Connect recently.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm diving into the whole video world right now and getting weird with it.
Yeah, I would check out Notch and do like, even if they've got a free trial and stuff. But there's if you go on the Facebook group, which is Notch community, they're such a like the community is such a like really cool creative group of people. They're all like, not only are like all of the support guys like Arminus and like everybody else,
Yeah.
Kevzu,
Right on.
a bunch of the guys that are really leading the way with augmented reality. There's a company called All of It Now,
Okay.
that's based out of San Francisco. Foraus. I think they probably screwed that up. It's Foraus. Those guys have got some really, really cool interactive stuff. Meptic, which is an Atlanta based company. They have a lot of really cool stuff out.
So like AR cameras kind of stuff.
Yeah, so Disguise and Notch are kind of like the big hitters in that kind of realm. Unreal Engine pipes directly in as well. But all of those real-time renderers, it actually was around the time that I started doing that iMag project, and I was like messing with Resolume, and I was like, I really want to be able to bring like more life to, an iMag feed. I was like, I don't want to just like have like, okay, here's a camera feed, like you're looking at somebody, it's cool. I was like, I want to be able to do I want to do film overlays. And I want it to look like there's like pixel leaks and like light leaks and like cinematic stuff. And then so I started messing around with just like overlays and Resolume on the iMag stuff, and I was like, okay, well this is pretty cool. Like I can do like really long. I can do like really long looped out like overlays of like some smoke or like something like that. But then the video designer Jeff Lava from 44 Designs, he asked me if I had ever used Notch before, and I was like, no, I'm unfamiliar with it. It was probably 2.5 years ago or something, but you can turn videos into pixels. You can make like literally move your hand like this, and there's like fire and smoke coming off of it. Like
that's awesome.
It's absolutely like one of the most time consuming and like just amazing things ever.
I'm not really familiar with this at all. So
it's just Notch software, but the company, it's Notch. So NOTCH dot ONE. Notch One is their website, I believe. But Notch and Disguise are like the very heavy hitters, and yeah. So Notch user group is the Facebook group, but yeah, Notch One. Yeah, so I'm
about to play with this thing. Thank you.
Yeah. It man,
my new quarantine toy. I'm about to dive into.
Dude, it's check out. So if you the really cool thing too, Arminus is one of their like main instructors and just like guru guys. So he has a Behance page. And all of his things that he builds, like you can download all of them, and the community themselves also share all of their like work files and stuff. So it's one of those things where you can get things. There's like hard body physics where if you have a box, you can put like a bunch of like particles in it, and when you shake the box, it bounces off the sides because it's reactive and stuff. Like, it's just,
that's really cool.
And then you bring like interactive stuff into it to where the Kinect cameras, to where you can move things in a 3D space. You can make to where, like I said, to where it's only a skeleton, to where to the naked eye, the camera that you have in a virtual world doesn't see you, but the software sees you because you're a software skeleton that's interacting with things in the video.
That's so cool, man.
And that's the same way that all of the the augmented reality and like virtual sets and stuff like that are going, as to where even cameras that are following you, like the Stipe cameras, can be connected to where you have so there's like Black Tracks, which does motion tracking, and then Stipe cameras, but you set your 3D position and your X, Y, and Z axis is 0, 0, 0, and then to when you move something, it's a virtual camera, so it's the same as like Cinema 4D or something like that. But being able to bring that into real world production environments is insane, because you can have, when the camera position changes, the shadows of the set change and stuff. And it's like, but there's not even a set there. It's just it's
Yeah.
just a virtual set.
That's really cool. So
Yeah.
like what kind of camera, like for somebody on a budget, would you recommend to like be
Um,
doing some of this stuff with
for
Notch?
for iMag stuff, I actually use the Marshall cameras, like the CV. I think the one that I've got is the CV 506. If you're just wanting to, like, that's kind of like the ones that like a lot of people, they're roughly the size of a GoPro, but they have an SDI output. So if you're using them in
Nice.
if you're using them in like a larger format place, or you just don't want to deal with HDMI cables, they have SDI out. They also have camera control software, so you can adjust your gamma and
Nice.
your lighting and stuff like that.
They Bluetooth?
No, it's just HDI or HDMI and SDI.
Okay.
I use a Magwell. I think that's probably pronounced Magwell, Magewell. I use their capture cards. The Blackmagic capture cards work really well too.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if you get one of those cameras, and I mean, you can use a GoPro with one of them too if you're just
Right.
looking. But Notch will see a webcam as well. Like if you have, if you've
Like a
got
Bluetooth camera?
yeah, it'll see all of those as well.
Cool.
Something that's even easier to do. It's like if you have like a proxy video, which would be like, um, if you download one of the like iMac scenes or something that Arminus or somebody like that has created for Notch, like it'll have like a proxy video, which will be like they've got like this couple of videos which are like just little 30-second clips of like a band playing, and it's like live footage of a band playing, but instead of, because if you're doing an iMag look like in your home and you're working on it, you're not really getting, it's cool because you get to move and you get to see how things interact, but you're not going to see what you would see if you see like if you were seeing a stage with lights coming back and like multiple points of movement, and like the guitar player moves here, you've got the drummer in the background, like how do those things interact together?
Right.
um, because then you get into much more like creative direction too, of like, okay, well, um, I don't need to be designing green particles and all this green crap if the video content, or not the video content, if the lighting is going to be doing, this color palette. So then you get into kind of all of the creative direction of like, what color palettes you're working from and stuff like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
For the live streaming game right now, I'm just looking for like a really solid camera that
yeah,
we could use with the having our light form behind it.
yeah,
That's going to be like pick up everything that's going on with the light form really well, and then
yeah.
also be able to res loom into it. That's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, the Marshall CV 506 is really nice. They've got another one that's a 4K camera. The things are literally like the size of a GoPro though, and they've got a super just crystal clear image.
Oh
Um,
wow,
they're tiny. Like it's
it's
so
really small.
you can't even see it. I've got one set up in between my two monitors back here.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's like the size of literally the size of a GoPro. So they've got a 4K model. They've got the standard HD model, but they also have interchangeable lenses, so you can get
It's crazy.
different lenses for them as well.
Nice.
I really like those, especially because like the stuff we were talking about with iMag setups and stuff like that. You can set up a static cameras, like say if you use like the Blackmagic Studio Pro 4K, you could have say 6 SDI cameras. You could set one up, typically I would set one up like where the hi-hat snare is, pointing it like up at the drummer's face, put one over his shoulder looking down, maybe put
Nice.
one on the like the guitar player's mic stand,
Okay.
put one, but you'd have 6 static cameras that you could put up around the stage, and then you could do, you could split the SDI signal and do, a notch feed back end, so you could have real time, colored effects and like smoke effects and particles and stuff like that.
Right
Um,
on.
and
Yeah,
then
it looks like it only does HDMI out.
the 506s do SDI and HDMI,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
but but yeah, so having a small camera like that that's auto focusing is really nice. I was stunned by when I got that, and I started messing with the camera quality on it. I was like, holy crap! Because
That's what I'm looking for 590 bucks.
yeah,
I mean, for what you get from what you're saying, sounds pretty good.
yeah,
I know that it's like an hour and 20 minutes. I know you've got stuff to do
no,
today,
no,
man.
you're good.
But I appreciate you coming out, like, and
Yeah,
doing
absolutely,
this
man.
episode for sure. I've been like frantically taking notes. I've been meaning to hit you up for a while to join the podcast and
Oh yeah,
trolling you on Instagram.
I appreciate being asked for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of good like nerdy stuff in here that I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy.
yeah. I
For
can tell.
sure.
Some people get around me and I'm like, it's like a 5-minute conversation that turns into 2 hours of me talking about interactive particles and shit
That's
like
what I
that.
was hoping for, honestly. That's what I wanted. That's what we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, for sure. Also, the Black Magic, I literally could not find one of their ATEM minis, and I would buy one tomorrow if it was available. I
Yeah,
don't know if
the public relations dude, actually, he told me, I asked him, I was like, what I'd like to do is I want to get a couple of these Marshall cameras I've got, because they're already doing like a press release on our media servers. And so we'd already like been in contact with each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
And I was like, told him, I was like, hey, I want to jump on this live streaming thing. Like the first day that I heard about, how everything was going to go into lockdown, I was like, all right, like I got to get this set up. I was like, I
yeah.
set everything up. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, easy. I was like, I got multi-camera in. I was like, I can use a Magwell 4K SDI capture card, stream to OBS. I was like, I can have Notch for live visuals. I can have video content for touring coming in.
Mhm.
Logo overlays, all this, QR codes for merch sales,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And then it was like, no, you can't go anywhere. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't need all that stuff because I can't go to anywhere to stream the stuff anyways.
Yeah.
Originally, like we were like, okay, well, we'll rent out a venue. We'll have like a 5-piece band, their techs. Then we'll have like a 5-person crew. We'll all have
Right.
we'll all go get tested or something like the day before we do a shoot, and then we can just live stream stuff. And we were going to work with some bands, donate to whatever charities we could, and like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
try to do whatever we could to help out.
Right.
Um, but then it was like, no, you're locked down. You're not doing any of that. So
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. This
yeah,
is a
well,
crazy world.
it's honestly, like I said, I'm hoping everything blows over for all of the people that are out there that are touring and stuff like that have been affected by
Yeah.
everybody, obviously, that's not touring as well. The entertainment industry is just, I mean, everybody's been hit, extremely hard by it.
Right.
I think the entertainment industry probably had a little bit more of like advanced warning, not even warning. It was just like, hey, because I mean, it was like the first week of March, and they were like, say goodbye to like summertime, like no tours. And then
Yeah.
like,
That's the big money maker season right there. It's just
yeah,
like,
yeah, it's going to be a very interesting thing to see how this shifts sales, bus rentals, and everything like that for like the third quarter, for second and third quarter of the year, because with everything being pushed, I mean, Bonnaroo's in September now. It's like, I mean, which is great because I live in Tennessee, and I'm like, hell yeah, it's not going to be 100,000 degrees.
yeah, right.
I'll go to Bonnaroo in September.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they'll do that every
Maybe
year.
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see like how this affects like everything, and the industry in general as a whole, as the year
Right.
goes on, for sure.
I could see it going either way, man. I could see people just coming out of cabin fever and just desperately
Yeah.
buying tickets to get out and go see
Oh
shows. And
yeah,
then
absolutely.
I think it's the economic impact for everybody is going to be real interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, that's how people in Alaska are, man. We did the Alaska State Fair, and it was just like they said that was like marked kind of like the end of summer for them. But if you go to like, it's odd because people tour, a lot of tours from the U.S. tour in Canada, and they tour in the dead of winter, and it's because there's nothing to do except go to indoor shows. So like you go to Canada in like March, and you're in Saskatoon, and it's just like people are just out of control because it's nothing but like 8 feet of snow, and they're just like dying for just like, let me out of the house.
Yeah, right. Seriously, cabin fever setting in.
Yeah,
Like I don't want to have to be with my roommate any longer. I just need to be free.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the industry is and everything. Honestly, like tour bus companies especially, that's going to be insane because with every single thing that has shifted, if you don't have a tour bus already booked, you're probably going to be in a U-Haul or something like that.
Going back to your tiny little minivan that your mom gave you when your band first started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on, man. Well, I'll be praying and wishing you the best, like in the summer months to come with everything. And yeah, man, I appreciate you joining the podcast. Like I took a ridiculous amount of notes, so I'm about to go super deep into the whole camera thing. But
hit me up with any questions. Anybody, info at savantplayback.com.
Yeah, I'll be adding all of your links in the show notes for anybody listening right now. So go check out the links. I'll include your website and social handles and all that good stuff. And you make great products, man. Anybody who wants to get into hardware of any type for shows or even just in your studio, like routing, if you have a decent studio build out. I mean, your stuff is great. I love what you do. So
it's very much appreciated. We constantly trying to raise the bar for ourselves, and just make good products. We have a lot of good vendors and a lot of good people that have helped us to get where we are. Especially all of the people on social media. We have people that buy systems from us at 4 a.m. from Puerto Rico, and they hit us up on Instagram, and it's insane the amount of support that we've had. I wouldn't be where we are without everybody that has bought all of our gear and support us still. It's me, a dude named Derek that does our production coordination in Arkansas that works remotely, and then one technician, and that's it. It's just like 3 or 4 of us. There's a couple freelancers and stuff like that, but we try to do what we can to answer as many questions of random stuff, that we can to just try to help anybody out. There's a lot of tricky stuff out there that until you've been thrown into the fire, you don't know. So we try to do what we can. So I very much appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure, man. Saving the world one custom rack at a time.
Yeah, one space bar at a time.
One space bar at a time. That's right. Well, man, and enjoy the rest of your quarantine, whatever that looks like. And maybe we'll have you back on the podcast in the future, and we'll definitely stay in touch. I'll let you know when this is posted.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, you too. This podcast is sponsored by liveproducersonline.com, a community of Ableton Live users connecting you to the pros to learn today's music production.